there will be lots of people currently reveling in Canelo Alvarez's failure. The kind who praise you to high heaven when you win and love sticking the boot in when you lose. I'm here to just challenge that whole pound for pound king narrative we had going on. I've been somewhat of a critic of Canelo Alvarez, but more so just pushing back against that over-the-top praise we had while he was enjoying some victories. Now, Tyson Fury, as we know, is pretty critical of the idea of pound for pound, if not sees it, in his own words, as a load of bollocks. He sees it as, well, if we shrink everyone down, one guy's supposed to be the best, and that's pure fantasy. That's one way of seeing it. I've always viewed pound for pound as kind of recognizing excellence, which can be, you could say, personified through moving up and down the weights. The more general definition would be consistently and clearly defeating top opposition. Top opposition defined by a little bit of the eye test and their own respective resumes. Where Tyson Fury would fall a little foul of that definition is, of course, he hasn't been that consistent. He hasn't flattened his division. And so when we go back to opposition, which for me is the most important of all the criterias, who you fought, when you fought them, how you beat them, this is where Canelo Alvarez has always suffered a little bit. Indeed, his performances seem to drop in proportion to the quality of opponent, whether it's a Lara, a Mayweather, a Golovkin, or a Bivol. He has really struggled against these guys. We can drop Bivol, we can forget him, because the platform on which Canelo's recent success was built was on that very suspect second Golovkin fight, which was real draw material, where we could say, yeah, you improved on the first fight, but you know what? You didn't separate yourself from the herd. If you want, you could include a somewhat undersized and jaded Miguel Cotto, but Canelo Alvarez's clearest top-tier win is probably Danny Jacobs. That's the truth of the situation, and that really does put things in perspective. That in itself, of course, wasn't a whitewash. Jacobs was competitive, and Canelo, as usual, needed his little moments to rest. He didn't electrify that night. Oh, it was businesslike, it was solid, nothing spectacular. Now, we're all aware of the favouritism Canelo has enjoyed with the scorecards, with the judges. So let's just flip that a moment. Let's give Erislandy Lara the decision back in 2014. And let's give Golovkin both decisions. I think after that point, some people would be saying, look, this is a bit unfortunate for Canelo. He has been, not robbed, but he's been unlucky. And most of us would agree that one of those didn't go his way. The difference is, when you look at someone like Pernell Whitaker, who was denied the decision against Jose Luis Ramirez in '88, and then got that draw against Julio Cesar Chavez in '93, we knew we were being denied the truth that he was the better man. Had Lara got the decision, and had Golovkin got both decisions, while we may have felt it was a little bit unfortunate, we wouldn't have felt necessarily that we were being denied the truth. The ring, which is also called the Chamber of Truth, showed us that those fights were all very close. Arguable draw material. We can all go back and watch them in high definition, and we can all see that while Canelo did very well, he also definitely struggled. Teddy Atlas, who has been a pretty consistent critic of Canelo over the last few years, like myself, I think has just been pushing back against that over-the-top hype. And he wasn't convinced that beating the likes of Rocky Fielding, Callum Smith, Saunders, Plant really solidifies a standing as the pound-for-pound best. Look at what the super middleweight division was about 10 years ago. The likes of Mikkel Kessler, Carl Froch, Andre Ward. We cannot pretend that we are not in a weak era. It is. And let's just see now what the likes of those guys who Canelo defeated, what are they going to get up to? It looks like Saunders has retired. As we know, he wasn't really a super middle. What's Caleb Plant going to do? Are these guys going to show any kind of form? Or just fade completely from memory? Canelo Alvarez has always had easily discernible qualities as a fighter. a crisp puncher, accurate. He used to throw more in combination. Now he just seems to kind of power pot shot you. But if we look at our top 4 pound for pound, which has, I think, been the top 4 for probably a couple of years now, I've always seen the likes of Usyk, Inoue and Crawford as having more natural boxing talent, more natural intuition. Inoue's accuracy just as good, his power unbelievable, body shots. He can also box, he moves. Crawford can pick such clever counters. And Usyk, for me, has been pound for pound number 1 for probably a little bit now, because of course he's clearly and consistently beaten top opposition. He's never really had a fight that could be considered to go the other way. And with Crawford and Inoue, I feel like if they're let off the leash more, they are just going to really impress you. Canelo's head movement and his great chin allows him to take on certain challenges. But I think when he's stretched with just pure boxing ability, you see the problems he has. You see the stamina issues. And he's not as slick as he always likes to think he is. In the loss to Bivol, he was like, okay, these punches aren't hurting me. But yeah, you're not getting out of the way of them. So I'll just reiterate the fact that I don't view Canelo Alvarez any differently. The fact he lost to Bivol, it's not a problem. Bivol really just showed me how good he is, how good a grip he's got of the fundamentals. The fact Canelo's trying to chase greatness, trying to push himself, that is commendable. A lot of fighters are just happy with their paychecks. They don't always want the heat. They don't always want the tough challenges. And maybe Canelo's ego is going to get himself into more bother here. But you've got to respect that. But in terms of the whole pound for pound king narrative, it was a little bit cheesy. It was inaccurate. Roy Jones Jr. was a pound for pound king. And that's because he spanked everybody, including his top opponents.